And what we're going to be talking about today is another momentous accomplishment, but it was not without its struggles. Steamboat Willie, the first sound cartoon to make an impact. I mean, it was like the first synchronized sound music cartoon all the way through, despite the fact Mickey is not.
And underneath, they call them talkies.
Oh, well, they call them talkies back then, or as we now call them, movies.
Yeah. Okay. Proceed.
This is just one of those significant moments in the history of film that made an impact on so many people. And while Mickey Mouse doesn't talk here, he does make a couple of occasional noises, and there's a lot of noises in this cartoon, and it's all synced so perfectly. So let me go through the history of this cartoon. When we last left off, Disney lost the rights to Oswald the Lucky Rabbit and was going on a long train ride home from New York to Los Angeles. The train ride home from New York was a long one, and Lillian remembered Walt acting like a lion and promising himself that he would never work for anyone again and be his own boss. At this point, they didn't have a source of income or no idea of the future. Things would change, though. Before leaving New York, Walt, in the circumstance that he would lose Oswald, he was devising a character to replace Oswald. On the train, he was sketching on a train stationery. Between Chicago and LA, he wrote a cartoon scenario called Plane Crazy, where a mouse, inspired by Charles Lindbergh's Flight Across the Atlantic, which made headlines way back in 1927, makes a plane to impress his mouse girlfriend. He told it to his wife Lillian, but she didn't like it only because of the mouse's name, Mortimer. I thought it was too sissy. Walt Disney devised a substitute name for the character, Mickey. Thought it was an outsider's name, or Irish, or something like that. Lillian liked Mickey better, and thus Mickey Mouse was born. Minnie Mouse, Mickey's girlfriend, was named after Minnie Cowles, who was Dr. Cowles' wife, a friend of Walt's. So this was just back when. While on the long train ride home, he did pass his old childhood home in Marceline, Missouri. And sometimes on these long train rides, it does get you to think. And sometimes it actually gives you time to establish something unique and potential for yourself going forward. So the idea for a mouse character came from according to legend, came from his experiences in Kansas City. Well, when he saw a mouse scamper by a park bench, or catching mice in a wastebasket, or hearing mice scamper around the Laugh-O-Gram studios. Sometimes these mice were like pets to Walt, although this whole story was a legend, actually, about him just having a bunch of mice pets and all that stuff. Ub Iwerks was rather confused about Walt's enthusiastic idea for a mouse after Walt lost Oswald, and Lillian once said, "We thought the mouse would be a cute character to animate, and that the cartoon Aesop's Fables had mice, which had Walt put mice in the Alice shorts, plus the posters for the Oswald shorts had a mouse trying to upstage Walt. So it's pretty plain that Walt wanted a mouse character because he liked mice." It was the drawings of Clifton Meek with cute ears and such that inspired the design of Mickey Mouse, and Ub Iwerks drew the character. Geometric shapes made the outline of Mickey's early design to make the character easier to animate. And I think Walt was able to inject a lot of his personality into Mickey because he was real desperate. He was making this out of desperation. Almost as if he felt like the mouse was pretty much a reflection of himself.
Yeah, like a little mouse in a big world.
Yeah, definitely. I guess he was real desperate. So they set to work on animating Plane Crazy, with only Ub Iwerks, Les Clark, and Johnny Cannon being the animators, with another artist named Wilfred Jackson coming on board. They animated Mickey in secret away from the Universal defectors who were still at the studio at the time and trying to work on Oswald. And some of Disney's closest allies, including his wife, helped in the making of the short. He was desperate to sell it to a distributor, previewing it to multiple people, though these distributors, although enthusiastic, weren't so keen. It was Walt Disney's idea to make Mickey Mouse a sound cartoon after screening a cartoon after the jazz singer. He saw the writing on the wall and was working on a second Mickey Mouse short at the time, though the Fleischers were also thinking about a sound cartoon as well. However, Walt attempted to make his sound cartoon different. He wanted the sound to be realistic. He wanted the sounds to sync precisely with the drawings. How would he do that? A metronome would determine the frames of animation per beat. And a sheet would be written out in order to determine each beat on in terms of what animation would be done. The early version of the X sheet, which is still used today, even digitally.
Yeah, I use an exposure sheet myself.
Oh, wow.
The third Mickey Mouse short was going to be the one with sound. Steamboat Willie was going to be a spoof of Buster Keaton in Steamboat Bill Jr. Now, Buster Keaton was like this really ancient sound comedian that was doing his own stunts like Tom Cruise, but only for gags, but he wasn't jumping off a cliff on a motorcycle.
Yeah. He even did like a comedic take the general, based on a real great locomotive chase of the local Kennesaw history.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They had a test audience of family and friends with live sound effects, and they were amazed. A second test with the whole cartoon was held, and the test was amazing as well. They needed to find a distributor for Steamboat Willie, though a lot of the big distributors back then were afraid to try the sound idea. Only one, Pat Powers, had a system called Cinephone that was cost-effective enough for Walt to go with, though Pat Powers seemed like a guy that could have conned the gullible 26 to 27-year-old cartoon producer. Regardless, Powers closed the deal on using Cinephone for Steamboat Willie, and on September the 15th, 1928, like a day before my birthday, not birth date, but birthday, they recorded all the sound for Steamboat Willie, but it didn't turn out well on that first try, as there were mishaps during the recording session. Kind of got a little ticked off about how they were going to do it because no one had done something like this before. And it kind of, Walt asked Powers for another recording session, and since the Disney studio ran out of money, they got a big loan and tried again, with Walt now having a system to get synchronized sound in a cartoon. Essentially, it was a ball printed on the soundtrack and film that rose and fell to the beats so that the orchestra would get the beats. The birth of Following the Bouncing Ball and the sing-along videos I watched a ton when I was a kid.
Yeah, especially with the Disney sing-alongs where you like follow the bouncing hidden Mickey.
Yeah.
That's
Same
so interesting.
principle. That's where it comes from. That almost the effective birth of Fall with the Bouncing Ball.
I had no idea.
He still had to find a distributor, and after meetings with Metro and Universal didn't go well, he ended up with Pat Powers, who was gonna try getting the mouse with Universal, which felt as though Walt was gonna fall into a trap again as he did with Oswald. However, Walt was smart this time around after discussions with Universal, so he ditched Universal and showed the film to Paramount and a distributor known as Film Booking Office, or FBO at the time, and they both passed. He would need some more money to record the fourth Mickey Mouse cartoon, The Barn Dance. So he had 4 Mickey Mouse cartoons with no distributor, and he was running out of time, and then a guy named Harry Reichenbach came to the rescue. Harry Reichenbach was known to pull off promotional stunts for film companies and was ideal in show business, and he happened to be the manager at the theater that Walt was gonna show Steamboat Willie for Universal before he ditched Universal. So for $1,000, the Colony Theater on Broadway in New York would show the first sound cartoon before the feature Gang War, starring Olive Burden, Eddie Gribbon, and Jack Pifford, whoever the heck they were. So imagine you just go into this, what you call a run-of-the-mill feature, do a little ancient ritual, just going to the movies every week at this particular theater. And you just want to see these particular stars, whoever the heck they are, and act in this little melodrama or something like that. And the lights dim, and the curtains open up, and surprisingly, the feature doesn't start, but instead there's a short, it's a title card that probably says Walt Disney presents Steamboat Willie, Iwerks process.
You don't need to describe the whole cartoon to us. We already watched it.
And imagine if you just looked at that for the first time, not ever seen a sound cartoon before, and you are so awestruck and amazed and just fascinated at what you're seeing. And the audience were definitely astounded, and they pretty much applauded it. I think this might have been a scene a bit where the short was much better than the feature that was going to come after it.
Wow.
And I think it was one of those moments where you would probably go into the theater, see the short just because it was so good, and then leave because the feature was mediocre compared to the short.
Wow.
It's like I think some of them were like, run it again, because this is like they had to just rewind all the film in the projector back then. The press gave rave reviews. Distributors who passed on Walt were now wanting a piece of him. And the first sound cartoon to attract favorable attention, as Variety put it, became a cinematic milestone. So, the problem now was that the distributors were wanting to buy Walt's studio, and Walt was not having it. Due to his experience with Mintz and Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, he wanted to be the king of animation at this point. After getting distribution with Pat Powers, Walt didn't want to be dependent on Mickey, so he needed to diversify. He thought of doing one reel live-action talking comedies, but he also was working on an anthology cartoon series without a single character backing it. He would essentially be musical cartoons. And the first one to come out of that was Skeleton Dance, which we talked about. Which we talked about on Halloween nearly 3 years ago. But so therefore, we're not really going to be talking about that. But the series would be known as the Silly Symphonies, which would pave way for another innovation in animation. So, coming next week, Walt Disney suddenly brings true life color to animation for the first time.
Whoa.
So,
That was
Julia, what did you think about that cute little historical, groundbreaking, iconic short thingy?
I thought it was so cute, and I love, you guys know I was in band all my life, so I really like music, and so I thought this was a really funny depiction of how people think about music, and I thought it was cute. I especially liked when the cow ate all the music, and then they crinked his tail, and then the music came out of his mouth like a sound machine. I thought it was so
Yeah, that
funny.
was a goat.
Oh, goat. Yeah. Okay, goat.
Yeah, definitely.
I thought that was so funny.
I've heard about this. I've heard about this short for years and years and years, and haven't really seen the whole thing in full until just this week, or something like that, just this weekend.
Yeah.
And I find it pretty amazed that this is definitely a first time short for Disney that to have a sound cartoon, and this is.
Yeah, I mean, they're even like working on film back then, so yeah, it would have been like a lot more difficult to incorporate the sound in, other individuals.
Yeah, of course they were working on film back then. so I was telling you about the history and the synchronized sound and the metronome and
Yeah,
follow
pretty
the
great.
bouncing ball thing. They were able to have the thing work so perfectly, uh, even if this short just happened to be a big milestone, and thus Mickey Mouse was born. As
And
a matter of
Minnie, I mean,
fact,
they share the same birthday together.
They do share the same birthday.
yeah,
Cute.
and as a extra bonus, when I was touring Disney back in April 2022, I had the privilege of seeing original storyboards for Steamboat Willie and an actual program or ticket for Steamboat Willie,
No way.
as if this was Mickey's birth certificate.
Oh,
Yeah, I never heard of a playbill being a birth certificate.
I know, how funny.
Yeah.
True
Well,
though.
it was definitely sensitive material, and the archivist managed to handle it with care. And I wasn't really touching it, but what I did get to touch was an Oscar.
Whoa.
I actually called an Oscar in my hand, and I was
Yeah, with Oscar, because
possible.
you might want to save that detail for whatever for a future topic ahead.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But Walt definitely still had a ways to go. He at this point he just wanted to rule the roost of animation. He was like he wanted to be the best game in town. So so I definitely enjoyed this short. It's definitely the first appearances of Mickey and Minnie and what would become known as Black Pete, a character who is throughout so much of history always up to no good.
Yeah, usually up to no good, right? So, yeah. Speaking of which, and I mean, did anyone else find it strange that he was spitting out a chocolate bar?
Spitting out a chocolate bar. Was he? I don't know. I don't know if that was a chocolate bar. I mean, that maybe there wasn't like any code back then. There wasn't like a specific system. It felt like do whatever, but it wasn't like the vulgarness or vulgarity or the Apollonus or no. I don't know how to say words that well. No, I mean I just can't find the words. I know there's a lot, but I need to expand my vocabulary. But
Yeah. Well, you know, that content advisory they have of like their vintage Disney archives on the plus. I mean, it's there for a reason.
I just I didn't know if it was a chocolate bar or tobacco or anything.
Oh, he could have been spitting out. Yeah, it's spitting tobacco.
I didn't know if it was tobacco. And remember those kids in the sound lot? They ate tobacco and they threw up on it. On the
Okay.
ride.
Well, I mean, I was just saying, I mean, this is like a nearly 95-year-old cartoon we're talking about. And
Nearly
the way that
95-year-old.
yeah, animals were being used as musical instruments was, yeah, definitely like what you said, Jordan. They're like, pushing the envelope of how, how wacky an animated cartoon can get.
True.
Yeah, they could they could definitely do a lot. But Walt still had further ideas. He wanted to continue with these ideas throughout his Silly Symphonies shorts, eventually getting into True Life Color, which we're going to get into
the fact that he
week.
like, broke ground with improving cartoons, starting with Steamboat Willie. I mean, it really, believe ways to progress it, as we'll soon see, Julia.
How exciting.
So
getting a good education here.
Well, I mean, I guess if you were in that theater and you just never saw a sound cartoon and you saw that sound cartoon for the first time and it was Steamboat Willie, you probably would be so astounded and you would applaud too.
No different from the jazz singer.
So
I got good going for some. Yeah, done. So see you next week, okay?
Okay.
Bye. Good to see you. Talk to you later.
Oh, and the Pikachu and Mickey Mouse, and turns out I didn't know about the 1,000 mark or the Pokédex at this point, but I probably better check it out.
Yeah, they do have the official YouTube page actually has like a montage of the 1,008 encounters, emphasis on account, of course.
Whoa.
1,008 encounters. Oh, okay.
Cool.
Didn't know if this was the cartoon or
Oh,
the
I
game.
just thought I would try to throw something off topic just to mess around with you.
I'm somewhat a little like me, but not exactly quite, but I can get it. All right. See you
Awesome.
guys.
Yeah,
next
gotta
week.
go for some dins.
Bye.
Bye.
Happy MLK Day or whatever.
Happy MLK Day.